The year is 1939. Europe teeters on the brink of war, and across the Atlantic, a young man named John L. Stensby, Sr., driven by the simple, profound need to support his family, enlists in the U.S. Army. He joins the 60th Anti-Aircraft, a decision that will forever alter the course of his life and thrust him into a crucible of unimaginable hardship and resilience. Basic training in those days was swift, practical. A rifle, a firing line, and the stark command: load it, lock it, fire it. Little did these young men know the true nature of the battleground that awaited them. John's initial days were marked by the camaraderie and routines of peacetime service, a stark contrast to the brutal realities that lay ahead. John found himself stationed on Corregidor, Fort Mills in the Philippine Islands, assigned to the Coast Artillery Anti-Aircraft. His role was vital: electronics, power equipment, searchlights, and communications. He was a cog in the machine, unaware that the gears were about to grind to a halt. Then the unthinkable. Pearl Harbor. The world was at war. John, deployed to Bataan, witnessed the swift escalation of the conflict. Communication lines, painstakingly laid, were torn out as fast as they could be installed. The enemy was everywhere, an unseen infiltrating force pushing them back. Day by agonizing day, the fall of Bataan on April 9, 1942, was a crushing blow. John, cut off from his unit, rallied what men he could. They salvaged a small craft and escaped to Corregidor, a fortress island that would become their last stand. Here John was assigned to WWII, a 12-inch mortar gun battery. The concussive blasts of their own artillery, fired manually after the electrical mechanisms were destroyed, were a constant, brutal reminder of their desperate situation. For 30 harrowing days they fought. 1 shot from us, 10 back from them, John recalled. They were outmatched, outgunned, and slowly, systematically beaten into submission. General Wainwright, under orders from Washington, made the agonizing decision: surrender. We never surrendered, John stated with a wry bitterness. We were surrendered. The capture was a descent into a new hell. The Japanese wasted no time establishing dominance. Defiance met with instant, brutal punishment. Refusal to bow, a simple gesture of respect in their culture, was met with a bullet to the head. The message was clear: obey or die. Beatings were commonplace, a chilling means of control over men who refused to be broken. They moved us off Corregidor to Manila, and they paraded us up and down the streets. Paraded us, you know. We had no water to drink, no food. It was hot, and we were pretty much starving as they forced us up and down, insulting us and hitting us, letting the Filipinos see us that they had taken us. Then we got to Cabanatuan, prison camp. We were placed in barracks, and they put everybody in 10-man squads, 10-man death squads. If one escaped, they'd shoot the other 9. We got fed a scoop of rice in our mess kit 3 times a day. That was better, actually, than we were getting in combat. The last month we were getting a scoop of rice twice a day. There was no food that we had, so we had very little. When we got taken prisoner, we got a scoop of rice 3 times a day. Things improved. We worked in the Mitsubishi heavy industry shipyards. It was reasonably a little bit better, though they still beat us. I sabotaged 2 things. I'm probably the only GI in the United States Army that sunk a warship single-handedly. I was working on the final part of a destroyer. I welded it, but I cranked the transformer way on down so it wasn't hot enough to really weld. It was more like putting it together. The weld looked beautiful. I just prayed it wouldn't fall apart. Next morning, we had a day off. The following morning, there was that ship sunk in the waves. We did a lot of other things. We sabotaged a whole lot of stuff. We must have thrown 1,000 welding rods in the bay. We'd go back for more like we were using them up. Good workers. You know, the guys spent most of the time figuring out a way to mess them up. I have to give them that much credit for that, even though they would have been a lot better if they had turned us loose or shot us. With the stuff that we did to them, I was working in the coal mines, just the last days of the war. I told my buddy Overmeyer, watch me tonight. I'm going to let one of those cars run in my leg because I'm not going to live anyways. I'm at the end of my damn rope. I'd let it smash right, and they'd keep me up on topside. Do you know that night the war ended? One more day, I'd have been dead or wounded for life. I had a bunch of guys. We were moving forward on the line. We got down into the water, about 3-4 feet deep, and a voice was in my head, so loud, so intense, so vibrating. I yelled too. Stop the truck. They stopped the truck. A second or two went by and the voices dropped and down the stuff came. Bombs went over the top and blew. Stuff comes over the top of us. The only place we could have been alive. 2 seconds less or 2 seconds more, we would have been blown to pieces. Where did these voices come from? How do you explain those things? The good Lord was watching over me. The Japanese order was posted in all the POW camps in 1944. It said that in any event that Japan becomes invaded, how to kill us, and to kill them all. Every prisoner. So there would be nobody alive to tell. The stories, I guess. All the prisoners were herded together on what they call the 29th replacement area on Corregidor. Our tongues were hanging out. We had no water, no food for a couple of days. Imagine the flies. Your arm was black with flies. We would push them off and the flies would come back. The flies were so heavy due to the stench. You have to go to the bathroom someplace, so you go wherever you're sitting. The stink and everything in that area was horrible. There were some nice guys once in a while. We ran across them. We had one guy that we liked, a little feller. We called him Junior. He was a Japanese welder. The sad part about it, they had these kids 8, 7, 9 years old. They'd get them out of their schools. They looked worse than we did. Nobody bothered with them. They were slave labor. Ears dirty, black, face scummed, hair scummed. They were more scummed up than we were. They were Japanese kids. I was told the Japanese could not afford to take care of the children, so they sold them to Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. And that's where they came from. We got word the war ended. It says take whatever you need for transportation, commandeer anything, and head off for Yokohama. We looked like you wouldn't know what we were. If somebody asked you what army it was, you would never know. We found this train. We told the guard in the engineer room, we're going to Yokohama. No, Yokohama. We all got back and talked it over and got a bunch of rocks. We went up to him again and said, Yokohama, one way, nonstop. We didn't have any guns that day. The rocks are powerful, intimidating. That look in our eye, we would have killed him. We didn't think nothing of killing him if we had to. It made no difference when we got over to Yokohama. The first thing we see is a great big fire. The first gal we had seen in 4 years. Hey, who's that? They made us strip. How would you like to wear what you got on without any underclothes? Just the outer clothes? Never changed for 4 years? The Japanese garb they gave us, we had those for 4 years, 3.5 years. We couldn't change or nothing because we had nothing to change into. We couldn't wash them anyway. We were dirty, filthy, and all the lining were lined with vermin all over. We got used to that. Naturally, we take the stuff off and everybody just took it off and threw it on the fires. All our clothes and the guys with spray guns just spraying the heck out of us. Getting the vermin out of our hair. We recovered, and the only thing that I thought was bad, the condition that we were in. I had read after the war about them taking some of these groups and flying them back to civilization. But they immediately put us on board a ship, which would have taken a lot more longer time to get there. They started feeding us just what everybody else was eating. You've got to consider when you went from a diet of rice a couple of times. A day to that, your stomach wouldn't take it. Diarrhea was rampant. Whatever we ate, we lost. We were awful sick, and that shouldn't have been. Whoever was in charge, that was one thing I was angry about getting released. We got back to the States and they had us at a hospital. We said to them, well, we're supposed to go to the port nearest our home and be released. Well, yeah. Don't be in such a hurry. So I got with the guys and said, don't say nothing. Let me take care of it. I went up to the guy in charge and said, I'm just going to let you know, as a matter of courtesy, we ain't going to be here tomorrow morning. We're going out of here. You can give us our clothes or we're going to go in our pajamas, but we ain't going to be here. We were told we're going to be released, and we're not going to sit around for a bunch of tests when our home is up that way. And we've been away for almost 4 years. Now that's enough of that. They gave us our clothes and they got us on a train and shipped us to the port nearest our home. I was shipped to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin. And that's where I was up there for just enough to get something to eat and get a little flesh on my bones for a very short time. And then we got discharged and shipped home. I re-enlisted. I was too sick to stay out. I had to go to the hospital and stay in, get some flesh on my bones. I was just in pretty sad shape. I stayed at Camp McCoy, and then they sent me down to Great Lakes Naval Training Station. They fed us there. Then I got shipped from there because I had re-enlisted out to the West Coast. I didn't go to school. I couldn't. I had a disability. On my left side of my head, the butt of rifles many times to get me to move or do something and scarred it. My short-term memory from that time on was nil. I'd go to school, I'd understand everything they said. And when I got back to the barracks, I don't remember a thing they said. My memory is shot. I have trouble today. I know everything that takes place a long time ago. But my short-term memory is zoom. It's just not there. I got back, and when I got back, I went to get paid for my 4 years. I found out that the Red Cross came to my mother and said, if you can say you're a dependent of your son, we'll give you X number of dollars of his fee. She did. She was not a dependent. I found out later that something similar happened and the government made their ruling during the Korean War that the government is responsible for this. GIs pay while he's a prisoner of war. That wasn't in my case. My money went that way. In 4 years, inflation had gone during the wartime period. They paid me what the sergeant was getting back in 1939 or 1940. So the money that I got for 3.5 years did not even equate to what the GI had got during that same period after he got out in 1 year. The money I got when I got out was a pittance compared to what I should have been getting. And nobody seemed to give a damn about it when I brought it up to my congressman. They passed the buck till it got to some civilian, and he just as much as said, drop dead, we don't want to be bothered with you. I felt that that is something that, if you look at the records, my payment for 4 years, 4.5 years as a prisoner of war, I think it's a grave insult. I appreciate the fact that you people are taking the time to run this thing, and I've given you the answers as I remember them, the best of my knowledge, and I didn't add anything other than what I thought was for real. Some of the stuff I told you might seem to be really way out, but it was way out. So just pass it on the best of know and the best I could give you. I have no reason not to tell you exactly what I know to be true. After the war, I got into an outfit called the Department of Subway Mining. They folded up. I had to turn it over to the Navy. Then I went to school in communications and got on some other work for the Army. I was career military. I did a lot of overseas traveling, teaching electronics. I told the G's that worked for me, just do your best. That's all you can do. Don't be worried about it. At least when you finally get out, if you get out in 2 or 3 years, you can look back on your career and say I did what I could. It was a job for me and I just did the best I knew how. I didn't dwell on the fact. I thought if I had to live it all over again, I'd tell it to everybody that I could think of, young people. I says, get as much education as you can. After the war was over, instead of staying with the service, I should have went off to college. The higher the education, get your doctor's degree, get your master's, and then your doctorate. The moment you open your mouth and say something, people listen. If you don't, you open your mouth, they don't listen anymore. As a result, I put that in my children. My 2 children went and got their doctorates. One of them is in engineering and one is a medical doctor, and my daughter is working on her master's. They got good jobs. One of them is a professor at UAH, and the other is a doctor in Winchester. They're doing very well. Education, I informed them from a baby on. I told them when you get through with your degrees out at college, I married a young lady. She's French and very, very nice. She's not my first wife. My first wife died. I have 3 children. I have 2 boys. One of them is a medical doctor up in Winchester, Tennessee, and the other one has his doctorate here in engineering at the University of Alabama here, WWII, and they both do well. I'm very proud of both of them. I have a daughter, yes, and she is in North Carolina, and she is working with some big medical outfit. She's doing very well. Thank you very much, Mr. Stensby. It's been a pleasure to interview you, and we appreciate your time and your sharing your experiences with us. Thank you.